Welcome to the EMEA Recruitment podcast, brought to you in partnership with Operation Smile. If you'd like to find out more about the work that Operation Smile does around the world, please go to emearecruitment.com/operation-smile. To celebrate World Smile Day 2022, we welcome Mairead O'Callaghan, Executive Director of Operation Smile UK. Mairead discusses her 11 years with the charity, as well as its goals for the next decade.
How are you, Mairead? All good today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on the podcast, Paul, as we discussed my very first podcast. So, looking forward to it.
Yeah, so am I. We've got a good list of questions to go through with you. So hopefully none of them will challenge you too much, hopefully. But yeah, I think it's a good range of questions. Some of them have come from the guys here at EMEA internally. We had a few externally from the network, knowing that you were going to be a guest on the show today. So so a good list to go through today, really.
Excellent.
Perfect. Now, the first question is something I like to ask every guest we have on the podcast, and it's obviously linked to the connection we have with Operation Smile. And so it's really, given this connection with Operation Smile, what was the last thing that made you smile, Mairead?
So, I'm always ready to smile. So lots of things make me smile. And, as I was reflecting on this question, I wondered about whether to talk about the squirrel that I saw outside my window today, or, whether to try to link it to something slightly more poignant. And so if you'll give me permission to already be breaking the rules, you won't mind if I give two reasons, will you?
That's fine. That's fine. We can let you off. That's fine. Yeah.
So the first one, well, you may notice I have these words written behind me here today. So recently, within kind of the global Operation Smile organization, we did a project on deciding what our values are. And, this was a project that reached far and wide across all of our countries, input from, staff and volunteers all over the world to come to kind of the, four things that we feel define us, which is resilience, impact, compassion, and integrity. And last week we had a kickoff call, and this was, with a lot of our global teams, and representatives from each team talked about, they picked a word and what it means for them. And that in itself made me smile. But at the time, as I was taking the call, I was actually in the queue. So I'm sure you know what the queue is, right? The lying in state queue to go to see Queen Elizabeth lying in state. And I think this has been such a poignant week here in the UK. And as I was on this call and in the queue, I was kind of reflecting on kind of the qualities of Queen Elizabeth. And, I thought if anybody embodied these qualities, it was her. And I guess then reflecting on, what the UK brings to Operation Smile. And if you look at Queen Elizabeth as being a kind of an embodiment of like the spirit of the UK, that really made me smile. And I was also happy to share the queue with, all of our global colleagues as we went through this call. It was only 1 hour of, I think, 7.5 hours, but they got to travel with
David Beckham in there as well. You weren't near David Beckham in the queue?
No, unfortunately, no celebrities in my section of the queue, but I have to say it was still a very, incredible experience that made me smile a lot, actually. So, and then the second one was recently we had the opportunity to host one of our Ethiopian plastic surgeons here in London. He had traveled in to attend a conference, and we had him in the office, and, he was able to tell us all about what's happening, in Jimma, which is our partner hospital in Ethiopia. But his story was really poignant. He joined the team in Jimma a year ago, and it was because he had been stationed in Desi, which is in the north of the country. And as you might be aware, there's civil unrest and has been in Ethiopia for quite a while. And actually his hospital in the north was attacked, and he and his family had to flee, and he made contact with one of our colleagues within Operation Smile. And, we were able to move him down south into the southwest of the country where Jimma is. And he's able to continue his work. And, we're so happy, and it made me really smile that we were able to relocate his family safely. But also it makes me smile to think about, what a benefit now that is for us within Operation Smile, and how we were able to help him, but also help so many children, and the hospital in Jimma, and all of the benefits that are going to come from that. So those were two things that really made me smile recently.
That's good, and two very big things for very different reasons. But it's really good to hear the what has sort of motivated you on that side, and it's always nice to start the show with thinking of smiling in mind, especially given the Operation Smile link as well. And I think within that, you mentioned about the medical missions that people do in Operation Smile, and obviously a few months ago when we had Phil on the show, talking about his missions in the past, it's very emotional, and they're rewarding, emotional, but also I think challenging at the same time, because I suppose you always come back and think, so much more we could still do. So have you been on many of these medical missions so far?
I've been on 4, so over I think 11 years almost now with the organization. I've been on 4. And it's a really incredible experience. And, I started my journey with Operation Smile working in the very small Irish office and wearing many, many hats. And when I was there, traveled on a few because I was managing volunteers, and, it was appropriate for me to go at that point. And then for many years, I took a break because I was working in a fundraising role, and actually I was much, much more useful, at my desk in the office. And so for years I took a break, and then since I've moved into this role, I've traveled to Malawi once, and it's incredible. Sometimes I think as a fundraiser essentially, and essentially as an administrator, you feel a bit like a penguin on land when you're in the field. That's not where we thrive, right? We're there to observe the medical teams thrive, the local staff, we're just there to kind of observe, help where we can, stay out of the way. But the value that traveling brings us as penguins in the water when we get back to, our desks, like it allows us to understand the voices that contribute to this organization and amplify them and bring them, to the supporters that we work with at home. And so, I've had some incredible experiences, met some wonderful local staff, patients, volunteers. I feel very fortunate actually to have such a job. So I'm a lucky girl.
And you've just passed your 10-year anniversary there as well, haven't you?
I know.
You've just been promoted 10 years, just over 10 years in the business. It's congratulations. I mean, that is some achievement. So you must feel, as you say, very proud to have this time in the business and experience all these different things as part of that as well, really.
Yeah. And, I think, I absolutely do. And I think I can't believe it's been 10 years or 11 years almost now, like it's really true that time flies when you're having fun. It's really incredible and something actually that's not unusual within Operation Smile to see so many people who stayed with the organization for so long. Because I think many people who kind of gravitate towards this organization, there's kind of an X factor that we vibe with, I'm not sure if that's that we resonate. And, for some of us, it becomes more of a vocation than a job. And I'm lucky to work with, so many passionate people across the world and so many passionate volunteers. So 10 years or a minute, depending on your perspective. And I've been lucky to have lots of opportunities. And I think that happens when you find something that you're passionate about and, that some people think you're good at, I guess, if you don't always think that about yourself. Yeah.
No, but it's very, very true. I mean, it's a conversation that we have on a daily basis with people, when they're going through their changes in their careers. And often it's difficult for someone to sometimes sit down and think, well, what do I really enjoy? What am I passionate about? What is it that excites me about this job or this company? Because I think if you've then got that passion to your job and the enjoyment in your role, then the role, it doesn't feel like a job. I think a job feels like a job if every time the alarm goes off in the morning, you keep hitting the snooze button and it's not enjoyable, and I think that's, if you can get that into a role or into a business where you've got that passion behind it, then that's a huge advantage really to having a number of great years in the business, which you obviously have as well. So, I mean, because are you able to tell us a bit more about your current role? Because it's still relatively new as well, isn't it? So, if you ever tell us a bit more about your current role.
Yeah, I was reflecting on this, and when you speak about people, not knowing what they want to do, or not having a very specific idea about what they want to do. I always felt like one of those people, like I'm a bit of a jack of all trades. Like I like to dip my toe into many different things. And although I'm not a master of any one thing, I really enjoy watching mastery in action. And I guess, I feel that my role as executive director is really to make other people shine. And, that's to make sure that within the UK, we have the best team in all of the different areas that we cover within the UK, and to kind of develop a team of masters really in their different areas. And, when I'm not working directly with our team, I might be working with our medical volunteers. And again, if you want to talk about mastery, the years of training that our medical volunteers have put into being masters of what they do is just incredible. And I mean, for anybody who's seen our before and after pictures, it's the results, speak for themselves. And and allowing them to shine, again, is such a privilege, and ultimately allowing our patients to shine, because everything that I do, whether it's working with our board of trustees, working with one of our fundraisers, or working on program plans for the UK, is to bring care to our patients and ultimately to allow them to shine, because we're all born, wanting to shine our lights and having the right to shine our lights. And it's not fair that some children are held back from that because of lack of access to, I won't say a simple surgery, because surgery is never simple, but a surgery that exists and that everybody should have access to. Because it exists.
Mm-hmm. I mean, was that your kind of motivator to join Operation Smile in the first place? Because I sort of know even before Operation Smile, you were working in charity organisations. So this isn't your first experience in this area. I mean, because that's something that's very interesting. I mean, it's something that I think whilst a lot of people would say they'd like to do what you've done, there's not many people that would be maybe brave enough to do that as well. So, I mean, you must have a very strong why behind you in terms of your reasoning going into charity in the first place, and then Operation Smile 11 years ago, really.
Yeah. Again, like I said, I never had, I didn't grow up kind of thinking I want to be the executive director of an NGO or anything like that. I didn't have a specific idea about what I wanted to do, but I think I knew how I wanted to feel in my job. And, if I was going to be spending a significant portion of my life working, I wanted to enjoy it. As you say, I wanted to be able to bound out of the bed every morning and feel like I was contributing. And so, I fell backwards really into the charity sector, and I just followed my nose, in a way, followed my passions and followed what I was good at, and kept an eye out for, kind of as a marketer, iterative opportunities that were closer and closer to what I wanted to do. And, it's funny because when the job with Operation Smile showed up, I had heard of Operation Smile, not because I was, madly interested in global health or anything like that, but actually it was back in college, when amongst my other, serious reading, I would also frequently read People magazine. I read an article about Jessica Simpson, who at the time was one of Operation Smile's brand ambassadors, and she had traveled to Kenya on a surgical program, and it kind of stuck with me at the time. I wasn't looking for a job; I was in college. I was looking for a meal at the time, so but it stuck with me. And so when I saw the job posting, it it clicked. And then I went to my first interview with Operation Smile, and I was interviewed by several trustees from the Irish office, who were all super impressive people, super inspirational people, including some of our medical volunteers. And it was just a real click. Immediately I felt like I wanted to get to work. And, I think my only question to them was where's the kettle? Because I was ready to at that point jump in and kind of make a difference. And it had this really entrepreneurial feel. Operation Smile, we're an NGO, but we're still kind of a mom and pop shop at the same time. So, it felt like I could make a real difference. And I think that's why Operation Smile then stepped in. And, 11 years later, I'm a true op smiler now. So
yeah, there you go.
They'll never get rid of me.
Also, who'd have thought Jessica Simpson could have had such an impact on your career? I'd say.
I know, right? On my style and on my career, Well,
I guess, one of the challenges that everybody's had over the last 3 or 4 years is dealing with the challenges of what COVID has thrown up, and especially, any charity has had issues over this last 3.5 years. So, I mean, how have you found it at Operation Smile? And have you had to kind of change the business model at all to adapt to the challenges that COVID has brought around?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the pandemic, when you think back to those early days of kind of panic and not really knowing what was going to happen, even over the next week, I'm so proud of being a part of Operation Smile at that time in terms of how we, managed ourselves through the pandemic. And I think, immediately we galvanized, we stayed in touch with each other globally. And we just, during the pandemic, every 3 minutes, a child was still born with a cleft. That did not change because there was a pandemic. And so, we banded behind the kind of mantra, the caring never stops. And, our goal during that time was to still care for our patients, regardless of what was happening in the world. And of course, the way that we did that changed because, we weren't able to deliver surgery. But it's kind of people stuck at home were doing things around the house. We were able to do a lot of housekeeping in terms of the other comprehensive care that we provided. So we really improved, the nutritional care that we provided, which, as is so important because that's one of the really early risks for babies who are born with cleft conditions. And we were able to make sure that our patients were fed during the pandemic and that they were healthy enough to receive surgery. We worked on our speech therapy programs, which we were able to do remotely, and we focused on kind of all of those elements of care that we could provide. And as well as that, we helped our hospital partners. So of course, as a kind of an international NGO, we work with hospitals and we rely on our partnerships with them to be able to deliver care. And so, many of them came to us to ask for our help. And because of the access that we have to, global suppliers and supply chains, we were able to provide PPE and kind of help them equip themselves to deal with the pandemic, which, ultimately was the quickest way of getting back to the work that we want to do. So, so in a very, very difficult time, we really came together and, it was a real testing of the mettle, I think, and for all of us on many levels. And I was really proud of, our whole global team for how we pulled together to deal with that.
And I guess now that things are, we're obviously recording this in September, 2022. So we're sort of back to some kind of normality now. So I guess now we're in this situation. I mean, have you got more medical missions lined up, and what is in the pipeline really for Operation Smile in the next 6 to 12 months, really?
Yeah, again, I'm really proud of Operation Smile at the moment as well, because I think it's doom and gloom. I don't know if you looked at the news this morning, but I mean, it's just, there's such doom and gloom, and it feels like there's so many problems in the world that seem hopeless in many ways. And Operation Smile this year is celebrating our 40th anniversary globally. And with that, we're kind of planning for our next decade. And, in the midst of all of this doom and gloom, we are setting the ambitious target over the next 10 years to treat 1 million patients.
Oh, wow.
And, I think, having the courage, as an organization and, our leadership all over the world to kind of say, put that stake in the ground and say, that's where we're going. It really, I feel really inspired by it and excited to kind of, lead our team or facilitate my colleagues to kind of play our role in that and do whatever we can to meet that target. And, that's going to be delivered in a variety of different ways, whether it's the kind of direct patient care that we provide through our medical volunteers, be they local volunteers or international volunteers, or the education and training that we do, the infrastructure projects that we do to kind of, help equip hospitals so they can deal with surgical cases, or the research that we're doing to make sure that we're headed in the right direction. It's a very exciting time for us. All over the world. So lots in the pipeline, Paul.
No, that's good. And it's great, a great high target to try and hit as well. So anybody listening to the podcast now, you've got to click the link and make some donations to get us on the way to hitting that target now. That's an easy, seamless link to getting people to donate on that side.
A natural fundraiser, Paul.
But it's obviously, I mean, everybody we've met on the podcast from Operation Smile and everyone I know there is always, super positive, full of life and energy. And I think it's one of those things that also, in the environment that you're in and the things that you see, the challenges that you have. I mean, it's a bit of a roller coaster of emotions on in the business, especially on the medical missions. And I mean, how do you kind of overcome the situations where the things you see that you come back on the medical mission and it's obviously you want to do more, but that's such it's a hard thing to overcome. I mean, how do you get through that mentally? Because I guess that must be pretty tough to overcome on that side. Yeah,
it is. I think I lean in. There's a whole gamut of emotions that are available to us as human beings, right? And I lean into them and, feeling things in the field or, feeling things in my day-to-day life, I think only makes me, a more compassionate human. And I want to, respond to that with integrity. Sorry, I keep going the other way.
Yeah.
And so, taking a moment and kind of maybe standing outside myself and like observing, how I'm feeling and giving myself time to process that. And, when I am feeling upset, not making any sudden decisions. If we all experience, I would agree with you, where there's a lot of positivity within Operation Smile, but, we all have our days. And I think for me, when I am having a day where I maybe feel less motivated than on another day, I'll look at Operation Smile's videos or like our before and after photos and kind of reconnect myself with kind of basically what we're here to do and basically, what my goals are to like leave the world a better place than I found it, right? And make sure that I act with passion and with integrity and make an impact. So that's how I do it. But, all of us wobble, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were saying off air, it's hard not to, because even when you hear the stories, when people are talking about them on the podcast, it's very difficult to not get emotional when you're hearing about some of the children that can't be helped on that particular trip because of time or whatever it may be. And you think, well, it's going to be a while. The resources are limited. There's only so many people you can see and so many places you can be in one time, and it's it's very difficult not to feel the emotion on that side, and I guess you mentioned it a bit yourself, a bit about the passion that you have and the drive, and one of the questions I was going to ask you, because it links into some other podcasts we've done recently where we've had senior level females on the show who've done extremely well for themselves in their career as you have, and I think I thought it'd be good to ask you if you had any advice for someone looking to follow what you've done, another woman, or actually another man actually wanting to do what you've done yourself and follow this path? I mean, what advice might you give them if it's almost like, if you were giving advice to yourself 10 or 15 years ago, what advice might you give to them at that stage in their career?
Yep. I do have a couple of pieces, and the first one is kind of talking about the importance of mentorship and finding mentors and leaders that you admire and people who you can befriend and who can help you along the way. And I was very fortunate to benefit from some great mentors. And I think, while you're driving yourself, the value of a mentor is that they could see things in you that maybe you don't see in yourself yet, and they see your potential rather than, you might be limited by what you think you have right now. And they encourage you to make leaps maybe that you wouldn't make on your own. And so, that would be my first piece of advice, to seek out good mentors. And then I think my second piece of advice would be yourself. I think there are so many misconceptions about what it means to be a leader, or like what a leader should look like, or how they should act, or, how they should respond to things. And I think there are no rules, listen to all the podcasts, of course, understand the leadership theories, but at the end of the day, you have to be authentic to yourself. And I think if you allow yourself to be yourself, you're also allowing other people to be themselves. And I think people do their best work when they feel safe and able to be themselves. And so, I think that's something that that I certainly try to live by, and that I feel exists within Operation Smile as well. So those are my two pieces of sage advice.
It's very true, though. I mean, it's advice that a lot of people give, but the reality is it's true. I mean, you look at anybody who's successful in any walk of life, whether we're talking about finance, any business discipline, but sports, anything you name, they've all got people who they class as mentors who they get help and advice from. They may not necessarily refer to them as mentor, but they've got people they trust that they go to for advice. And, and I think it's, it's always good to have those people around you to help guide you in the right direction. I mean, I'm not sure, are you prepared to say who your mentor is? Or are they going to say, they're going to stay confidential on this? Well,
I'll definitely give kudos to my predecessor at Operation Smile UK, who's now our Senior Vice President for Sub-Saharan Africa. But, I can certainly say that, she nominated me to succeed her into this role. And, if she hadn't done that, I probably wouldn't have applied for it.
There you go. So she shaped the next 11 years of your life, as well as Jessica Simpson. So those two are responsible.
Jessica Simpson, yes, exactly. So, but, and that's important. And, I'll pay that forward as well, as I progress in my career, I think too.
No, that's great. And I guess the last question, really, I mean, obviously we've talked a lot about the charity and what you're doing there. And I suppose if anyone's listening to this and wants to try and get involved and help raise funds and awareness, is there any advice you can give them to try and get involved in the charity and move that forward? Yeah,
I mean, it takes, all of us can play a role in making change, and if aligning with Operation Smile, and if what you're hearing today is something that interests you and you're listening, then we would love you to be involved. There are many ways to get involved. It can be as simple as making a donation and kind of, speaking that way, getting your company involved, getting your friends together and running an event. If you have a medical qualification, potentially you could become one of our medical volunteers. And so I would encourage you to, go to our website. It's operationsmile.org.uk. And there's a section at the top called Get Involved, and it describes the different ways that you can get involved and points you to the kind of correct people on our team that you can reach out to understand more. And, if you're not ready yet to get in touch, there's a box where you can sign up to the newsletter and just, start to read about what we do. It goes out monthly, and we'll tell you about what's going on in the field, any upcoming events, and, and something might click at some point down the line. But, so many people have become integral to Operation Smile from just kind of a random encounter or listening to a podcast or whatever it might be. So, there's absolutely opportunity for people to get involved.
Excellent. And the more people that get involved, the more chance of that target being hit as well. So that's all good news. So it's been awesome to welcome you as a guest on the podcast today. I've really enjoyed it. I mean, I knew I would do. We obviously know a lot about your background and speaking to some of your colleagues as well. I knew it'd be a great conversation, and it's really inspirational what you've done in the 11 years of Operation Smile and what all of you guys do at the charity day. So I think I'm hugely honoured to partner with the business, and obviously hopefully we'll be able to keep doing more and more in the future as well together.
Well, likewise, I feel honoured to be on this podcast, and thank you, Paul, and to everybody at EMEA as well for your incredible contribution to what we do and for continuing to raise awareness. And it's invaluable, and it's really going to make change in the world, which is what we all want. So.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you for inviting me.
I can't think of a better way to close off the podcast. Make change in the world. That sounds a good way to close off. But huge thanks for being on the show, and we'll be in touch again soon.
Great.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.